Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C. Now, we've just dealt with the Russian elections of this past Sunday with our friend from the Open Alliance of Election Monitors. And now we would like to go to Athens, Greece, to get a report. And this will be the final pre-election report on the Greek election, which will be held now on Sunday, the 20th of September. And we fortunately joined once again by Michael Chiotinis in Athens, Greece, concerning, first of all, what's going on in Greece. And then we want to talk a little bit about something that we welcome very much and we're absolutely in favor of. That is in Paris on the 12th, that is to say a week ago, we had Yanis Varoufakis, the former finance minister of Greece, along with Jean-Luc Mélenchon of the Parti de Gauche of France, Oscar Lafontaine of Die Linke in Germany, and Stefano Fassina, this is a guy who was in the neo-communist party, right? The PD, I guess. And they're talking about a plan B for Europe, and they're talking about a conference to be held in Paris in November. So we are highly interested, and we urge people to take part in this process, right? Make sure that it's diverse, open, fair, and that it leads to an actual program. So welcome, Michael Chiotinis. What does it look like 2 days from that election?
Hello. A lot of things to say, not much time to say it. Now, polling shows Syriza and the Conservatives neck and neck, close to a tie. I don't believe we'll see that in the election result. Syriza is going to come first by a fairly safe lead. It'll be an easy victory for Tsipras. But the question is, what kind of a government can we expect to see then? And generally, what should we be looking for? What is at stake in this election? Now, polls show ANEL, the independent Greeks, Syriza's coalition partner, under the 3% threshold that a party must reach to enter parliament. In other words, to be represented. People feel that when they vote for a party that will get less than 3%, then their vote is lost. It didn't count for anything. So mainstream media, controlled polls, they tend to underestimate parties not likable to the oligarchy and that are close to that 3% in order to drive voters away from it. Right. I'm sorry to become so technical, but this is important stuff. Now, in January's election, polls again showed in the independent Greeks under the 3% threshold, around 2.5%, and they actually got closer to 5%, double that. Why am I talking so much about the independent Greeks? Well, it was back in January, it was the only consistent anti-austerity party ready to clash with the European political elites, and also it was the only culturally right-wing anti-austerity party, and I always thought it was essential to have right-wing representation of anti-austerity politics in government, right. In order to avoid the civil war climate. Right. That was my concern. Right now, once again, polls show that this independent Greeks party under the 3% threshold. Of course, this time around, this party also signed the third bailout deal, along with Syriza and Alexis Tsipras. So this party has lost its essence, what gave them a reason to exist. So their annihilation is not impossible. But you also think they are no threat to the European establishment anymore. However, if the independent Greeks are unable to give Tsipras the seats he needs in parliament to form a government, then there comes Topotami, the river, this culturally center-left, but actually neo-fascist, neoliberal, common sense type party, and it's going to be the coalition partner, along with PASOK, the old socialists. And from Schäuble's point of view, these obedient parties are much preferable to some crazy, impulsive right-wing populists. So, if the independent Greeks indeed fail to get in parliament, we are probably going to see a government of Syriza, the socialists, and this river party, Topotami. So a government controlled by Berlin, imposing a neo-colonial agreement and selling off the whole country. But there is an even more important point here. This election is going to consolidate the TINA doctrine, T-I-N-A. There is no alternative. The old neoliberal impact. I think that is exactly the reason why we're having elections right now in the first place. All good-willing people of Europe will see Syriza governing according to the Troika's conditionalities, imposing harsh austerity and not being able to deal with corruption and oligarchical power, because under this deal, no law can be discussed in Parliament unless it is first approved by the Troika. That's how close the supervision is. Now, apart from national sovereignty, that's now openly abolished, seeing Syriza govern in such a way, in effect not governing, this is humiliating. And thus, it is politically catastrophic for the left in Europe. So I actually think that the European elites right now pretty much want Syriza to win. The TINA doctrine is going to triumph under a Syriza government governing in such a way. Someone can say that this could be temporary. In the coming months, there are going to be elections in Portugal, Spain, Ireland. Tsipras himself is probably hoping for something to come out of these elections. And then maybe things in Europe will start to change. The rise of Podemos in Spain, to the extent that Podemos are something positive, anyway.
Right.
Some anti-austerity political forces rising in Portugal, etc. The hypothesis is that these are signs that Europe is slowly changing for the better. Alas, I think these are small signs of resistance indicative of the fact that Europe is actually rapidly changing for the worse. And in this context, I don't think any real positive change is possible in a reasonable amount of time that can ensure the survival of the Greek economy, the Greek society.
While we still have a couple of minutes now, we've got that other party, though, right? We've got the Popular Unity, I guess it is, right?
Yes,
what's with them? And what's with their program?
Yes, well, I refuse to take into consideration the communists and the Nazis, because the communists are isolationists, the Nazis are Nazis. I don't want to see the Weimar analogy materializing too literally. The only progressive force in Greek politics right now, real progressive, is the Popular Unity, the part of Syriza that broke off following the signing of the third bailout deal. They are for a Grexit, but not as a tool, not as an end to itself. They want social change before there can be change in Europe and political change in large scale. Varoufakis himself published an article today saying that though he doesn't completely agree with them, he's going to vote for Popular Unity, and because it has some people who worked with him in the Ministry of Finance very well, who did the only positive things that Syriza was able to do, these things that were considered to be unilateral actions, and now under the Troika deal, they are being reversed. Polls show Popular Unity around 3 to 5%, somewhat safely in Parliament, but I expect a lot more. And if anything good is going to come to Greece, it will come from that.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Always illuminating. So we'll be turning to you again, maybe as early as Sunday night, but certainly next week. And we'll be back in a minute on World Crisis Radio.